Welcome to an overview of the TOEIC TOEFL IBT Independent Writing Tasks, Part 1. The objectives for Part 1 involve providing an overview for the TOEIC and TOEFL writing tasks. On the TOEIC, this is referred to as question number 8. On the TOEFL, we will be looking at the task referred to as the independent writing task, and then we will be looking at the scoring rubrics for both. We will also engage in an activity helping us to identify the types of topics we will see on these assessments, and this activity is referred to as Name That Topic. On the TOEIC, again referred to as question number 8, it is called the Writing an Opinion Essay. On this part of the test, it comprises one task that will take about 30 minutes to plan, write, and revise a personal essay of about 300 words. It must be typed, and the word processing feature that you will be using is much more similar to Notepad if you have Windows, Microsoft Windows, instead of Microsoft Word. So you really can only cut and paste text on this particular part of the test. The essay sort of follows a standard college essay format, though it's probably not as strict as you would see at, say, a university. You do need to include a brief introduction, which is somewhat important on this task. Of course, the body of the essay is probably the most important, and usually this is where you would include the two reasons you're trying to make to support your argument. And then give a conclusion, which again is somewhat important on this particular task. The essay itself is scored holistically. Holistically means sort of overall, or the overall evaluation. And again, they use a rubric to identify the areas that they're looking at that they consider to be most important. So again, organization and content are things that are the most important. Vocabulary and the ability to express yourself is part of that, and that's also a very important idea on this task. However, grammar and punctuation, well, it's not necessary to have perfect grammar or punctuation, so we will consider these to be a little less important than the others. And then, in terms of its scoring, the scale is 0 to 5, in which 5 is the highest score that you can receive. So again, if you will notice, in writing an opinion essay, the test makers themselves explain that the things they are looking for are your opinions supported by reasons and examples. Of course, grammar is always something that they'll be looking for, but in real examples that we'll be looking at in later videos, you will see that perfect grammar is not always necessary. Vocabulary, of course, is one of the most important areas, because certainly part of the idea is vocabulary is linked to our ability to express ourselves. And most importantly, organizing our thoughts so that they're easy to read and logical to follow. On the TOEFL, you will notice that the requirements look almost the same, and this shouldn't be a surprise since both tests are provided by the same company, Educational Testing Service, or ETS. Again, the independent writing task for the TOEFL, there is one independent writing task. Again, 30 minutes and 300 words. It must be typed, and again, the word processing feature very much like Notepad. Now, on the TOEFL speaking section, you will notice that the writing section is evaluated much in the same way, and again, that's holistically. As we said earlier, holistically is looking at an overall evaluation of your writing style. So in general, the ability to organize your thoughts and express your ideas clearly and logically, those are the things that they look for. Vocabulary appropriately, and of course that's more important than just demonstrating grammatical accuracy. Certainly you could spend your time creating very grammatically accurate sentences, but not say anything very interesting. So, especially in my experience, it becomes more apparent that the TOEFL is much more about the ability to express yourself. So using good vocabulary is always important. And again, the evaluation criteria are almost exactly the same as for the TOEIC, from 0 to 5, 5 being the highest. Content is more important than grammar. Organization is generally more important than style. And fluency and expression are highly valued because, again, it gives the test raters enough information to evaluate your ability. You will find links to the TOEFL Writing Rubrics, sample topics, and sample responses available at the bottom of this web page. Now, in terms of just general advice to writing, writing is something that often gives students difficulty, mainly because it's something that we don't necessarily do every day. Sure, you might write an email once in a while, or maybe send texts, but those are definitely not the same things as writing an essay. So the first thing we're going to stress in this course is to think about the idea that we need to practice, and practice a lot. Because again, on the tests, you have to be a fluid typist, and you have to be fluent in your ability to express yourself in English. So I really want you to think about it in much the same way that we improve our speaking by speaking. Well, the only way to be a better writer is to write. And again, the written responses on both of these tests follow the general elements of a basic college essay format. Again, those would involve introduction, a body, and again, conclusions are important. Of course, you will see some examples in which the conclusions themselves may not be the most important part of the essay. Something we often forget, mainly because there's a time element involved, we often forget about how to plan and revise for these types of activities. But planning and revising are very important parts of the writing process. So don't skip these two areas, even if you're trying to save time to spend more of your time writing the essay. Of course, the best place to begin is talking about, well, what kind of essays are we going to see? That would involve looking at the types of topics we're going to see. So, my first piece of advice when it comes to approaching the writing tasks is to be very familiar with the types of topics they will ask you on both tests. And again, there's a considerable amount of overlap between the TOEIC and TOEFL in this case. The essays generally revolve around things to involve your personal opinion, about daily life, or on the TOEFL, especially about university or campus life. The topics themselves are definitely not controversial. You won't see any topics about sex, violence, gun ownership. Any of those things will certainly not be included on the test. And don't be surprised if you find question types that are referred to as hypothetical. And again, hypothetical means imaginary or not real. So you might see situations that might ask you, what would you do in this particular case? Again, these are fairly common on both the TOEIC and the TOEFL. Now, in general, there are three types of essays that you will see. Those types involve defense essays, or sometimes referred to as argumentative, comparison essays, in which you have to compare different ideas, and explanatory essays, in which you have to give an explanation or your opinion about some specific topic. So let's begin with the defense or argumentative essays first. Always remember that for all of the questions on the TOEFL and TOEIC involving writing, they're your personal opinion. In terms of the body of the essay, as we said before, 2 reasons are always a good minimum to begin with. So we need these 2 reasons to support the opinion we're trying to give. And these reasons need to be logical, and they also need to be consistent. And of course, this is something that we will continue to return to as we develop our writing skills in English. Now, when we look at the topics themselves, we're going to be paying attention to a concept I like to refer to as signal words. And these will be concepts that we'll discuss more in class. But for example, in the defense essay, common signal words that you will see to help tell us what kind of essay it is involve words such as, do you agree or disagree? Or do you prefer one viewpoint over another viewpoint? And at least judging from the literature that ETS has provided for us, the defense essay seems to be the most common topic type. So even if you take the test and find a comparison or explanatory, if you were to take the test several times, you might notice that the defense essay might be the one you see the most. Let's take a look at a couple of examples. So again, notice in the light blue, identifying the signal words that help tell us that this is a defense essay. So, do you agree or disagree with the following statement? People should sometimes do things that they do not enjoy doing. Use specific reasons and examples to support your answer. So notice in the first one, it's asking us to state a position and defend it. So, take a look at it. Do you agree or disagree with that statement? Should people sometimes do things they do not enjoy? Of course, one of the difficulties in deconstructing this essay topic is to think about, what if I disagree? What exactly am I disagreeing to? Does this mean that I think people should do things that they enjoy all the time? If I disagree? This is one of the trickier aspects of looking at the topics and trying to figure out what exactly I'm trying to say. Look at the second example. Is it better to enjoy your money when you earn it, or is it better to save your money for some time in the future? Now you might think that this is looking like I'm stating a particular opinion, and that's true. But still you have a choice, and you have to defend one of those choices over the other. So, which one would you choose? Is it better to enjoy the money now, or to save it for the future? Of course, both have very legitimate answers, and both could be argued. Now let's look at the comparison essay. Once again, remember, it's your personal opinion here, not someone else's. In terms of the requirements, I find the comparison essay to be a little less strict than the defense essay. First off, you get to kind of state advantages and disadvantages of different sides of an argument, which oftentimes you don't get to in a defense essay. So in the body, generally what you have to do is give an advantage of one point, and then give an advantage perhaps of the opposite point of view. Finally, the topic does usually want to know which particular point of view you prefer. So even though it incorporates a little bit more than a defense essay, here you have a little more freedom to kind of look at both sides, or many sides of an argument. I do find it's important, though, to remember that if you're going to compare, you have to give equal balance. Many times students spend too much time on the first point and not enough time on the second, because they don't manage their time well. When you give a response, oftentimes we will use what we call contrasting discourse markers. So in your response, you might want to use words such as however, on the other hand, or on the contrary. These help to establish a difference between one point of view over another. When looking at the topic itself, again, it's important to notice, well, what are the signal words that tell me what kind of topic it is? In this case, words such as compare, like compare the advantages. Discuss, like discuss the views or discuss the advantages. These are often pretty clear signals that are telling me that I need to compare something in the essay. So again, let's look at some sample topics. Some people choose friends who are different from themselves. Others choose friends who are similar to themselves. Compare the advantages of having friends who are different from you with the advantages of having friends who are similar to you. Which kind of friend do you prefer for yourself, and why? So again, notice the beginning of the essay looks much like a defense essay. But the key word here is the word compare. So I get to look at both sides of the argument and say that there clearly are advantages to both. And again, that's what the essay wants to know, the advantages, not necessarily the disadvantages. So I could look and say, well, friends who are different from me, they provide some good things. And friends who are similar, they also provide some good things. And one of the nice things about the comparison essay, again, is you get to state your preference at the end. Because even though you might be able to see the good in both, you probably do have a preference. Let's look at another example. Some people believe that a college or university education should be available to all students. Others believe that higher education should be available only to good students. Discuss these views. Which view do you agree with? Explain why. Now again, you look at this essay and say, well, wait a minute, I do see that they want me to choose one to agree with. That's true. But before that, they do want you to discuss both of these points of views. So in that way, it makes it a comparison essay. I get to look at both sides and kind of discuss the advantages or benefits from both. So should university education be available to everyone? Are there advantages to that point of view? Why, on the other hand, do others believe that it should only be available to good students? So again, this gives you some freedom and opportunity to kind of look at both sides. But remember, you do have to state your preference at the end. The final essay type we're going to be looking at is referred to as the explanatory. And again, this is usually what we might consider the personal opinion essay. Again, once again, all of these essays do involve, to a certain degree, your personal opinion. And this one provides the most flexibility when it comes to responding. The body of the essay, really no different. You need to give 2 reasons for why you believe what you believe. And the signal words you might see in the topic involve things such as, what is your opinion? Or what do you do in this case? Again, let's look at some samples. Your school has received a gift of money. What do you think is the best way for your school to spend this money? Use specific reasons and details to support your choice. So again, notice right away, what do you think? And even then, if you continue in the essay, it says the best way. So in this case, I probably need to give one fairly broad answer and then think about some reasons why I would support it. Wouldn't it be great if your school could receive a gift of money? Think about, of course, if you're going to spend that money, it's obviously a certain amount. So you have to think about what's a logical way to respond in this case. You can't spend this money on several different ideas, so perhaps you might want to think of, well, perhaps our university would benefit from a new library. Or if it's, perhaps purchasing books for your library. In our second example, notice that this one is perhaps somewhat of a historical perspective. The 20th century saw a great change. In your opinion, what is one change that should be remembered about the 20th century? Use specific reasons and details to explain your choice. Now, there clearly is not one right answer to this. The 20th century, of course, had saw lots of different great technological innovations. So, for example, the automobile, the ability for space travel, the development of the computer, all of these seem like pretty good answers. As long as you can explain yourself and provide good detail, you'll probably do pretty well on this type of essay. So, to help us understand the idea of topic a little better, we're going to play a little game. So, it's time to play the game I like to call Name That Topic. So let's discuss the rules. In your activity, you'll be given 2 minutes to identify as many topics as you can, simply by choosing either defense, comparison, or explanatory. In this activity, you must receive 100%. If you don't, you'll have to go back and do it again until you do receive 100%. Before you play, let's look at an example. What do you consider to be the most important room in a house? Why is this room more important to you than any other room? Use specific reasons and examples to support your opinion. Okay, so you've seen the topic. Now, here are your 3 choices. Is this a defense essay, a comparison essay, or an explanatory essay? And hurry, the clock is ticking. Well, if you said explanatory essay, you're correct. Again, in the example itself, the key words are, what do you? So, what do you consider to be? Notice in the essay, it doesn't ask us to compare anything. It asks us to essentially choose something and explain it. Hopefully you did well on this little example. Now it's your turn. Name that topic. So at the bottom of the page, you will see a link. Click on that link to begin this activity. When you are finished, please return to the video portal to watch video part 2 of our video series. Good luck!